Shortly after Katrina, the company I worked for received this contract to build this temporary flood protection structure. It's a barge gate, and it's a federal job. They do everything right. So they put these really cool lights everywhere. And about 2 years later, I was lucky enough to get the contract to build the permanent sector gate, which made the old barge gate obsolete. So as part of the contract, we had to demolish that barge gate. So I saved 3 of the lights from the scrap iron dumpster because I knew one day I wanted to light my walkway. The light poles did not come with bases. They were mounted to the handrail. So I'm going to have to make up some little bases so I can bolt them down to some little concrete pedestals. So that pipe is 4.5 inches OD. So I did a template 4.25 inch OD so I can do a fillet weld. And I marked the center hole, which will be where the coupling will be welded. So we'll cut these out, and I need 3 of them. I'm going to cut them out of the web of this beam.
I got ashes on my forehead and gumbo on my chin. I know where I'm a-going and I know where I've been. I was born in Louisiana.
I'm going to cut the 3 base plates out of the flange of this little beam. I got the web trimmed, and before I cut them to length, I'm going to cut the holes, the access holes. This is the bottom plate, and then we'll need to drill a hole in each corner for an anchor bolt. This is the rigid EMT coupling that the light pole will fit in, and I'm going to weld them onto the top of my little base. I'm going to cut them all in half though. I only want half a coupling each one. So got the first one marked, and it's in the vise, and I'm going to try to cut it as accurately as I can. Got the couplings cut in half, and I have the galvanizing polished off of them or sanded off of them, and I'm slipping a half coupling into the hole in the top. Have a piece of pipe screwed into it to protect the inner threads. So the 3 tops are welded and grinded or ground, and they're okay, nothing to brag about, but a couple of coats of epoxy paint will make them look real good. And then the base plates, I started kind of cleaning them up. First I got to cut the rest of the web off and then clean them up, and I'm going to pre-drill the 4 anchor bolt holes before I weld the pipe to it.
I was born in Louisiana, state of original sin. I've got ashes on my forehead and gumbo on my chin. I love to eat, love to drink, and I love to play parade. But come Ash Wednesday morning, I will hear my pastor say, all that living is mighty fine, but it don't take long to learn. Remember, you are dust, my child, to dust you shall return. All to you, all to you. I offer all to you, Lord, to you. I got ashes on my forehead and gumbo on my chin. Know where I'm a-going, know where I've been. I come from Louisiana, state of original sin.
I'm multitasking this morning, which usually doesn't end well, but I can't help myself. This is the body for the light standards. I need to cut it into 3 4-inch chunks, and I need to wire wheel it first because it's all rusty.
I got ashes on my forehead and gumbo on my chin. Love a Mardi Gras parade and I love a crawfish boil. I love to dance a 2-step in the VFW hall. I go to mass on Sundays and holy days I do. I say my rosary beads at night and I offer all to you. all to you, all to you. I offer all to you, oh Lord, to you. I got ashes on my forehead and gumbo on my chin. Know where I'm going and I know where I've been. I come from Louisiana, state of original sin. I got ashes on my forehead and gumbo on my chin. All to you, all to you. I offer all to you, Lord, to you.
Still multitasking. I just lit the furnace. I'm melting down some bronze for a pour. In the meantime, I got the 3 holes burnt for the nipples for access to the inside of these things. And I'm going to cut them to length now with a grinder. Try to get a pretty straight cut. It's been a good day over at the foundry. I got my bronzes poured. One of the little ones didn't come out. I ran out of bronze. I should have known better than to start it. But anyway, the 2 big ones poured well, and those are the most important ones. And I've got the light bases fabricated. One of them has been treated with the grinder. 2 of them haven't. Then I'll do the flap wheel on them, and then I'll put them in the bead blasting cabinet to clean the interior. And then a couple of coats of epoxy paint, and they'll be ready to go mount. Okay, I brought one of the lights in for a closer look for the first time ever, and the hood's cleaned up okay, but they do have some cracks, but they're plastic, so I think I can fiberglass and epoxy that back together. But the light is not an incandescent light. It is a, I don't even know what you call it. Sodium, high pressure sodium or something. Let's see if this will come on. And I don't want that. I just want a regular light bulb, maybe an LED bulb. So I'm going to take this thing apart, and I presume there's some sort of controller or something for this type of light bulb. Get rid of that and just wire it direct 110 so we can just use LED bulbs. Totally wrong about that. It's just an incandescent fixture. You just pull that and it's 2 wires and a ground, and that's it. It's just a super heavy duty waterproof covering where you screw the glass, you screw the globe up against this rubber, and when you tighten these 3 screws, it tightens it like underwater tight. Kind of cool. Well, they're pretty ugly. They've been laying on their side for 5 years, but so far they're coming apart okay. Nothing makes my welds look better than about 60 mils of epoxy paint. These are good to go as soon as the paint dries. So before I poured any concrete, I laid a conduit in the forms. I wired them to the little stakes so it wouldn't float up, and I turned out at the 2 light poles, and then at the end there's a straight shot to the third light pole. And I ran it and turned it up at this column so I could get into my garage attic. Okay, it's time to pour concrete for the foundations for the light poles. These 90s I have installed already, but if I 90 up from them, it's going to put me kind of far out from the concrete. I want it to be a little closer. So I'm gonna trim these back a little bit and then 90 up. I dug down about 30 inches underneath each one of these supports and made them pretty wide. I wanted to make sure that these light poles would be stable. They are kind of tall and limber. All right, a few hours later, I am ready for concrete. Each one has a pretty good sized post hole under it, about 30 inches deep and wider than a post hole because I widened them out with a sharpshooter. Each one has a big coil rod going to the bottom, acting like a big rebar. So each one has a steel band in it to keep the concrete from opening up. And each one has a pair of supports ready so that all I have to do is set this here, get it in the middle. It's got some long anchor bolts and it'll be sitting 3/4 of an inch above the concrete so I can use these jacking nuts to level the light pole, because if this weld is just off a little bit, by the time you stick it up 8 feet in the air, it's going to be off a lot. So I'm making it so I can level it with the jacking bolts, and then I will grout it in place. My next step in getting ready was to pull 3 wires through the pipe. Unfortunately, I didn't have the right color codes. I got 2 reds, but marked one of them with the black tape, and so I'll know which one it is. I can use it for the ground. Then it was time to stand them up and screw them in. It was a little awkward because I didn't want to cross thread the threads, and it's a little bit of a sloppy fit. Electrical threads are different than plumbing threads. They're not tapered, they're straight all the way, so they're a little looser until you get way down in there. But I managed to not screw up any of the 3, and then with the 4-foot level and the jacking nuts, it was relatively straightforward to get them level and secure both ways. Took a little trial and error. I had to go back and forth, but it was really went really well. I pulled all the wires out the little access hole, and I mated them up, wire nutted them, and taped them. And now I'll shove them back in the hole and put the plug in place. Unfortunately, one of the 3 domes was cracked in 3 different places. I got it patched with epoxy and some glass tape. And it looks okay now, but it's going to turn yellow, so I'm going to have to paint this one. When we built the house, I had the electrician add 2 extra switches right behind that door and that back wall, and just run the wires up in the attic and tie them off, because I knew one day I was going to have something under this tree. So the first switch I used for those little lights that point up at the tree, and they have been nothing but a headache. They're always getting wet and shorting out. And right now there's a short somewhere because it keeps tripping the breaker. So those will probably come out. And the second circuit is going to go to this electric eye so that we can turn on the lights, the new lights. And if we forget to turn them off, or if we just don't turn them off, this little thing should turn them off for us. This should be fairly simple to run the wire up in the attic and have power. So I picked up a bag of some sort of patchcrete from Home Depot. Pretty much anything will work if you're not counting on it to be structural, as long as it doesn't have rocks in it. If it was super structural, you'd want to get a non-shrink grout, but this is just gives it a little extra strength. It makes it look a lot better, and it keeps the little critters out, the ones that might get in there and chew on your wires, or the paper wasps, or whatever other nuisance animal might get in there. Keeps them out. Overall, it just gives it a little more of a professional look. And the wiring's done, and I have checked the electric eye, and it works. So kind of anxious for sunfall this afternoon to see them come on all by themselves. It's going to be cool. So can you hear me smiling? This is like way cool. This looks better than I had even guessed it might. Sad thing is, probably 20 of these ended up in the scrap iron dumpster. And they might be in the front fender of your Hyundai by now. Who knows?